Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Wishwell Farms. Today we are going to be connecting our irrigation for our vegetable crops because they are thirsty. So you can see this big mangled mess here. This was stuff that I used several years ago and I've just never disposed of it because I want to remove some of these good fittings on here. I have some couplers and hose clamps throughout this mess that needs removed before I get rid of it. There's a nice 90 right there. See another one right there, so I don't want to get rid of those. Those cost a couple bucks. So there was a bunch of mouse holes right here. Is a perfect example. A mouse chewed a bigger hole through where the drip fitting went in, so it made it unusable unless I spliced a coupler in there. And then I hit it with a bush hog in a couple spots, and you can see what that does to it. I mean, it just absolutely ruins it. So I had 2 new lines last year run across the field, and we stored them in the winter in this grassy path. I used to wind them up on a big electrical wire spool, and it was such a pain in the butt. So we just started dragging them out along this grass path, and we'd leave them there during the winter, and then in the spring pull them back out and connect them. And every now and then there might be a mouse hole chewed in to the flat tube. This is called flat tube. This is what the hole is supposed to look like. A little bit smaller than your pinky, and our drip fitting connectors are going to pop in there. Mice like to chew a bigger opening in that hole, rendering it useless. So I pulled out our 2 lines that was stored in the grass, and believe it or not, I think one of the lines had over 10 mouse holes chewed in it. So it's useless. So I'm gonna have to maybe cut some good sections out of this or just get rid of it. So my son and I just pulled out a brand new line, and he's in the middle of connecting it right now. I'll show you what we got down here and how we are hooking it up, and then here in a little bit I'll go back up to our well pit, the source, our water source, and show you how we have it connected there. So up at my barn by the box trucks is my well pit, and we use a 2-inch layflat. It's called a layflat because when it's not pressurized it lays flat, you know, just like your hand. You can drive right over it, and it's a high pressure line. I think it's good for at least 60 psi, maybe even 80 or 100, I can't remember. But we probably have close to 60 psi running through this blue line into this T. And we used to shoot off another line that way for irrigating this field when it was laid in plastic. So I have a couple gate valves here. We just keep that one shut off. We use it for flushing now. This gate valve is on. We have a 10 to 32 gallon per minute pressure regulator at how many psi? I think it's 15. I can't see it. Oh, 10 psi. That's a 10 psi pressure regulator because drip tape doesn't take a lot of pressure. We got a little pressure gauge right here, and it is running at about 12 to 13 psi. So we got a couple shut-off valves here. That one will be able to feed that half of the field when we lay plastic over there in a couple weeks. And I can shut it off here for running this side of the field. So this line is called a flat tube, and I'll show you why here in a second. But it's a low pressure line. It's not made to handle like more than 15 or 20 psi. This is what flat tube looks like. Not much different than the lay flat. It's just a different material, and it's low pressure, and I'm guessing cheaper, I'm not sure. 21, yeah, there it is. 1.5 inch oval hose. So I guess that's the official name of it. Oval hose, 21 psi is what it's rated for. So the 2-inch lay flat is what carries the water in higher volume and higher psi to the field, goes through the pressure regulator to our 1.5 inch flat tube. And Gavin's working on it right now. We'll see if he can poke a hole in here. These new lines sometimes are a bear to get holes poked in. All right, this is a drip irrigation fitting. I'm going to demonstrate how we connect it to our 1.5 inch flat tube, and then how we connect it to our drip tape, also called trickle tape or drip line. And there's one on every row to irrigate our entire field. So you can either use this little handy dandy punch, but for some reason it's kind of dull and very difficult to poke through this rubber on this 1.5 inch flat tube on a hot sunny day. We're just going to use a drill bit. And then you take your little fitting, pop it right in. And then we take our drip tape, we want to cut it about 1 inch beyond the end of the drip fitting. I like to turn it on just a little bit. So see how it kind of pushes water back? If there's junk up inside underneath that clear plastic part, just flushes it out. And it's just easier to do when everything's pressurized. Slide it all the way on, and then I'm squeezing the nipple with my finger and thumb while I tighten that cap down on there. And it'll lock that drip tape into the fitting. And now that row is being irrigated. So on this row of plastic, this is where our onions are going. We're gonna have 4 rows of onions, and it has a double drip tape. And this is where we had to splice it when we were laying the plastic. You can see this side is full of water and pressurized, and the other side going the other way is empty. So I got a drip irrigation splicer. I'm going to show you how we connect that. All right, so I'm just going to cut this line right here. Oh, almost cut it too short. I got sucked back into the plastic. It's going to be a little bit messy, but that's all right. We just shove it down inside there, and then we're going to tighten this end down. Now the drip tape's wedged up inside there, and then we need to figure out where to cut this other one. About right there. Got a little bigger hole here in the plastic than I like to have. Definitely going to be weeds growing here. And then we're just going to shove this down inside that piece I cut. Almost cut it too short. Then we're going to screw the other end down. And tighten them both a little bit more. Voila! No more leaks. Now let's go to the other end and make sure the water. My gosh, these trains are loud. I swear these trains get louder every year. All right, let's go to the other end and make sure the water is coming out and pressurized. You're gonna believe this, the day after planting, we have flea beetles already on our eggplant. See that little black dot walking around? And if you look at this, you can see how the leaf looks like little buckshot. That's from the flea beetles. They will destroy these things in a matter of days. So I gotta come out here and spray these. I'll just walk the road with a little handheld sprayer for now. But these little devils are hard to kill. It just amazes me how quickly they attack the eggplant. I mean, it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. All right, I see that both lines are pressurized, and we just do a double knot. 2 simple knots at the end of each row. We'll let this row irrigate for a couple hours, and then it should be good for transplanting our onion sets through the plastic first of next week on Monday, when I have more people here to help. All right, we have all of the drip lines connected to the 1.5 inch flat tube on the entire field, and I currently have the peppers and eggplant turned on down there next to the onion row that I just repaired. We're gonna drive to the other end, and I'll show you how we tie a knot in it to pressurize it so it's actually irrigating. We use a low flow drip tape. I used to use a medium flow in here, but my well, it does put out 33 gallon a minute. I think it's a 2.5 horse, so it's a decent size well pump, but not enough to be able to irrigate my entire field all at once. So I can do 16 rows at a time. So we'll run it for 4 hours on about 16 rows, and then I'll shut those off and turn on the next 16. So I can water basically 30 some rows a day, which is almost an entire half of the field. Normally, I'll probably just do 12 rows just so I'm not overworking my well pump, and it'll take about 4 days to irrigate the entire field once we're into June and July and everything is planted out here. All right, we're at the end of the row of eggplants. You can see the water coming out of the drip tape. We want to tie a knot in this so it pressurizes and actually waters the bed. Now there are special fittings you can put on here, like a flush valve fitting, but I have found over the years that it's not really necessary. So I'm just going to grab this, tie a knot in it, but I'm going to do it twice because it'll still leak through. There we go. So now it's fully pressurized, and there's little slits on this drip tape. Can't see water coming out of it now. But every foot, there is a slit in the drip tape where the water drips out while it's pressurized. All right, I'm currently here at my well. I have a 2.5 horse pump submerged in here. And the reason I have a little spout coming off of this is because it's an artesian well. We hit water at 50 feet here, and it was producing 100 gallons a minute. So it's a very good water vein or aquifer, whatever you want to call it. And it has constant flow bubbling up out of the well at 3 gallons a minute, 24/7, 365. So I had to put this little spout on here to capture that 3 gallons a minute, and I just ran a tile down to my creek. It used to go into my pond, but my weeping willow kept plugging up the tile, so I had to dig a new one last fall to the creek. And I used solid, non-perforated tile this time. That's why this is all boogered up right here, because I had to dig that tile, and I just haven't fixed it yet. So here is where I irrigate out of the well. There's a little underground line to this spot here, and I have 2 gate valves down there. This is the main shut-off gate valve, and this one is like a gate valve to drain water out of this to winterize it. So because you don't want water in here, this would all crack. So you can see here we have our 2-inch layflat carrying the water down to a 90, because I used to split off and go this way for irrigating some of the things up there, and then it goes all the way out to the field where we were. Now normally right here I have a Mozzie injector, which is just like a high pressure, low pressure fertilizer injector. My brother's using it on his garlic right now over at the other farm. I don't necessarily need that today. I'm not fertigating. I'm just wanted to get the water all hooked up and rolling. But in June, we will definitely have the fertilizer injector there and start injecting fertilizers for our crops. Our drip tape is a low flow drip tape. You can get low, medium, or high flow. I used to use medium flow out there because my well pump puts out about 33 gallons a minute. And if you do the calculations, which I haven't done it in years, I was only able to do like 8 rows at a time with the medium flow. But if I use the low flow, I have to run it a little bit longer, but I can do more rows, which is what I would prefer. So now I can do up to 16 rows at a time with the low flow. I wish I knew how many gallons per hour it is. I'll throw it up on the screen if I can find it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So yeah, it's nice to be able to water 16 rows at a time. I wish I could water the whole field. If I had a bigger well pump, I could, but I'm happy with that. So I could actually water 32 rows a day because I water 4 hours at a time. So in an 8-hour day, I can have pretty much half of the field watered. And then the next day, I can do the next half. So usually it takes me about 3 days to get the entire field watered. But if I ran it around the clock, I could do it in 2. Alrighty folks, that's a quick look at our irrigation system here at Wishwell Farms Produce. Pretty simple and unsophisticated, just the way I like it. There'll be plenty more content in the coming weeks and months on irrigation and fertigation, so stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again real soon down the farm.